Hello, everybody. Welcome to Market Moves. I'm Jason, the Wizard of Ops, and I am alone today. Jay had a emergency family emergency, and so yeah, it's all me today. I will go through Jay's trade plan a little bit, but I'm just actually, you know what? I'm going to go through things my way just because that's kind of how I look at things. It is more swing tradey. I will be looking at August OPEX. I will also take your requests for earnings if that's what you want, and yeah, and any kind of questions that you guys have. So I'm actually going to yeah. So let's get started. I have Volland up, and this view right now is my Vanna view, and this is what I base a lot of my decisions on to do swing trading. This is like my monthly kind of, outlook for August. I go basically month to month, kind of looking at how to trade. Is there going to be shifts in the middle of the month? And when I say month, I mean option month. So from OPEX to OPEX. I'm going to turn on my light real quick. I'm looking at my picture here, and it doesn't look very good. So it's very cloudy out over here. So yeah, so I just kind of look at it month to month. I do look at a little bit of a holistic view just to kind of see what positioning is changing. And then I go from there, and then I make kind of like a trade plan, and then we can look at a few earnings things, and there we have it. So, all right. So the first thing I'll look at actually really quick here is the changes in Vanna. Now, we just had in April like a large volatility shift, right? And realized volatility is kind of the base for pricing. So April, we're now looking at like April's what? Like 3 months ago, 4 months ago, something like that. So we're beginning to see some shifts in the pricing, and it's showing up here in the Vanna heat map. You could see some pricing changes out here at 6,200 all the way out in December. You see a lot of changes here in September. So we're looking, in the out months, this is just kind of like a curiosity to me, but in the out months, we're seeing a lot of shifts in option pricing, particularly as it deals with skew. So right now it's just a curiosity, but I mean, with a lot of these negative skew numbers in the put region, that's kind of saying that puts and calls really in September, maybe getting cheaper. So that also kind of checks out with the premium selling of customers that have been happening recently. So there's been a lot of that. And we'll get into that a little bit. Vanna, we're looking at all expiration. Again, we could see a lot of sold calls here at 6,000. 6,000 has been a tower for a long time, but this is bought puts. It's been a tower for a long time, but right here in between 6,000 and the current price of around 6,300, there's a lot of red here, a lot of negative Vanna, and that is showing for premium selling by customers. So 6,000 seems to be the ultimate low leg of some kind of condor or vertical, put vertical, sold put vertical. And, all these strikes can cause a major downturn as people start needing to hedge or take off their positions, right? So that's just a curiosity that I notice again, but it is something to note that there could be some volatility if we start crossing these sold put strikes. All right, so let's get into August. So, we just stepped down from like kind of the all expiration. We see that there's a lot of downturn, but we are still seeing positive Vanna, right? Around average. So it's not, nothing impressive. We're not probably going to shoot 100 points up in a day. But, it's average. So we could probably see a slow pace move to the upside. That's what we can expect from the all expiration. Now let's take a look at the monthly. So this is for August OPEX. So we just passed July OPEX, so we can see now for August. In August, prior, like when we were down here in the 62.75 area, I was looking at this area as like kind of a tipping point, right? If we close above 62.80, we can move up to even the next ish resistance at 63.40, 63.45, right? But the big resistance is right here at 6,400. Note, 6,300 is no longer a problem, right? If you're a tech analyst or, whatever, and you've been seeing markets bump up against 6,300, you can now see a breakout because 6,300 is not a big strike for this option month. The big strike is 6,400. Okay, so that will be the next strong resistance. 6,300 we could probably move through with ease now. Easier, right? I mean, I'm sure there's going to be people selling it, but it'll be easier to pass 6,300. And if the last time I checked the pre-market, it seemed like that's what we were going to do, right? The downside, however, we are seeing a little bit of support. I mean, if we drop down here to 62.75, we are seeing a little bit of support between 62.50 and 62.75. But ultimately, the support disappears if we cross 6,200. Again, 6,200 becomes a very large support, but it's not as strong as it was before. So I think 6,400 right here, I think we can creep up. I mean, this is very strong positive Vanna for the August month until we get close to 6,400. So we can creep up just a little bit. And then once we reach that like kind of 6,400 area, which is only 100 points. I mean, what is that? Like 3%, 4%, something like that. No, I guess 10, 100. Yeah. So it's like 3%, 4, it's not much. We can creep up to 6,400. I do think that will be a turning point because by then dealers can probably release all their book, and they can release that even in the OTC market or something like that. And usually when you hit that resistance, it opens the door now for downside. I do not project, look at this is extremely strong at 6,400. I do not project passing that number. But we will probably advance close to that number, probably like this week or next week or something like that. And once we get there, then we will have, the door will be open for downside. I do think, though, too, the door being open for downside could coincide with that macro environment where this tariff looming deadline is coming on August 1st. And if we reach the 6,400 level this week, and then we kind of stick at 6,400 for a little bit, as August 1st comes closer, which I guess is next Friday or something, not this Friday, next Friday, as that comes closer, I think the market can start to anticipate this tariff drop. I know that news has not been, especially tariff news, has not been taken too seriously by the market in the past couple weeks. But that's because, number one, they pushed the deadline back. And number two, there was a lot of put support last month. And, so once we passed that 6,000 with that ceasefire from Israel and Iran, there was a lot of put support underneath. And we were able to accelerate up to 6,300 resistance. I think this month we will, we'll get up to 6,400. But I think the macro backdrop of tariffs will begin to hurt both the bond market liquidity, and hurt earnings projections, because tariffs are, that will cut into earnings. It will hurt inflation. It'll, cause inflation. That's one thing universal in tariffs in every country in every time frame is inflation does go up, at least in the short term. And so all these, and if inflation goes up, then that means the Fed cannot cut rates. I know Trump that's another kind of macro backdrop, is Trump is trying to push Powell either out or to lower rates. But I think that the Fed is being wise, considering the current fiscal backdrop, to keeping rates the same. If tariffs come up. I think inflation expectations will also pop. So it can get rocky in August, right? All right. It can get rocky. Is it bad that when I said it can get rocky, my first thought was, yo, Adrian, you know it could get rocky. All right. Now, this week, well, actually, you know what? Before I do that, let me go next week as this updates. Where's next week? Oh, we can't see it. All right. So let's look at next week. So this is our first view, I guess, with the overnight option traffic. There's always overnight option traffic, and it all updates all at the same time at 9 o'clock. So just keep that in mind. We'll look at next week first, and then this week. Next week is where we see all of that put support here at 6,200. That's mainly when that support is there. It's probably on this August 1st date. I always kind of say that support or hedging is bullish and selling is bearish. This is some hedging, but it's not a lot of hedging. I have a feeling that selling may overtake. We're going to need to, if we do pass the 6,200, we're going to see a major over-vixing probably as people panic buy puts underneath 6,200. And there is still like 6,400 now becomes, this is a bought call kind of situation for customers. So they kind of have calls bought in 6,400 and then calls sold for the August expiration, which is interesting. But it's also this right here, this 6340 right here. This kind of supports the slow crawl up to 6,400. I do think that once we get here in this divot for next week, that's when we could start seeing some slowing, right? But yeah, so, and then we can look at this week. Now, this week is a little bit different because next week is the tariff thing, and there is some put support there for the new tariff deadline. But this week does not have much support at all. This is negative Vanna, but as you can see here at 63.15 over to 63.25. You can see if we advance, which I think at the pre-market, we've advanced 20 points or something like that, 10, 15, 20 points. We can get to positive Vanna again. So I think around here would be a good target for like today. Maybe, today, this week, like early this week. And zero DTE tends to be, I'm not going to, I could show you zero DTE right now, but it's going to be overshadowed pretty quickly. Zero DTE tends to manifest a lot of sold calls above price and bought puts below. So zero DTE tends to get you over little humps in resistance. Today, we're not seeing that necessarily. We're seeing a lot of sold calls at 62.70. I guess, is that our boy, the Captain Condor guy? I don't know, but we'll see. And, we're seeing a lot of sold calls here or bought calls here. I do think that this will end up being kind of like a target area, 63.20 up through 63.30. I think that'll be a good solid area to consider for a target. But right now, like, you can't count zero DTE too seriously. All right, so let me go to, let's see, do we have any questions first on this? Okay, so Albert has a question. If zero DTE shows plus 900 million at a strike, but all expiration Vanna shows negative 400 million, how should I reconcile that? For intraday moves, should I focus on zero DTE only? Okay, so Albert, when you're doing if you're doing like intraday trading, the thing that I would take into account most is the first you have to kind of look at like what I just did, kind of look at the highest, but you don't account for really all expiration all that much. what you should do is you should go with the like kind of 30-day to be your like highest thing to look at, and then look at the weekly, because the weekly Vanna usually has a larger impact than Then you look at 0 DTE for your intraday levels. Like 0 DTE is great for levels. It is not great for like you don't want to like time the market using 0 DTE. You can't do that intraday, but you could definitely look at levels, and that's what dark matter is very good at. That's what he talks about a lot. He talks about identifying the levels and trading just the levels. And when you get there, you get there, right? All right. So I'm trying to share this. Let me try to share this Options Whispers thing. I'm here alone, so this is you got to bear with me just a little bit. All right. Let's see. All right, I guess I got to do entire screen. So let me turn off. Let me cancel this because for some reason it is not letting me do that. All right. Image file. There we go. All right. So now you can see these earnings right here. Now I'm putting myself a little bit bigger. Maybe I should probably put this. Yeah, there you go. You don't want to see me. You don't want to see my face, right? You want to see these earnings. So first, before we're open today is Verizon. That's it's not going to have a major market impact, but I think it's always nice to see kind of like their dividends. Their dividends are always like creeping up, but it's priced so poorly. I mean, if you do a Verizon, you buy 100 Verizon shares and you kind of just sell, you could do synthetic shorts against it. They always underprice earnings, and I don't know why, but I haven't looked at it recently, so maybe they underpriced earnings or maybe they didn't. I don't know, but that is a move if you want something extraordinarily safe based on Verizon dividend releases. So yeah, that's just a observation. We have Coca-Cola and Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin, with all with America exporting weaponry to Ukraine and Israel and everywhere, Lockheed Martin probably might get a bump in earnings. Coca-Cola, American company, so it's not going to be affected as much by tariffs. But these are the two biggies: is Tesla and Alphabet, because tech rules right now. And I'll probably later on I'll do a Substack specifically on those two earnings, and maybe ServiceNow as well, kind of related. Chipotle, delicious burritos. I like their burritos, but they're a little bit overpriced too, right? American Airlines is going to be interesting because the summer travel is, there's conflicting reports. I hear, July 4th had a lot of travel, but summer travel is down. So I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Maybe I'll look and see if there's a play to be made on American Airlines using the, Volland Vanna, but we'll see. Deckers, first stock I ever bought was Deckers. So, so it's just a what's it called? A sentimental look, but I never traded anymore. So I just look at it and say, oh, Deckers, I remember that. Hey, you can put in the comments, what is your first stock you've ever bought, right? See, we'll see how many of them are still in business. So, all right. So that is the earnings. Again, Tesla and Alphabet will probably get its own Substack for paid subscribers later on. So I will now go back to sharing my my Volland, and I will go through everybody's questions. So let's go. All right. Oh, wow. Good questions. That's what we need. All right. Let me take a sip. A lot of talking dries out my mouth, right? All right. Yeah, Deckers was my first stock just because that was back when like UTs were like, the big thing, and it was, coming up and coming. And then made a little bit of money on it and then sold and was, got all giddy. But all right, Yuli says it's not letting me show your thing. I guess I can't share. Oh, there we go. All right. During the day when you don't have put support on SPX and there is a rug pull, is that bullish? Also, when there's no put support on SPX, but SPY has put support, which would you lean against? So this is an interesting question. Oh, I should turn off this earnings whispers. Why didn't I? Hold on. Let me figure this out before I boom. All right. Okay, so when you don't have put support on SPX and there is a rug pull, is that bullish? It depends. So first of all, if you're taking out all the other traffic and there's a rug pull without put support, then what happens is that Vanna in the calls should shrink as it goes outside of 20 delta. And that's why I say it depends. If your call positive Vanna is like in that 30 delta range and you see a rug pull and it goes to that 20 delta range, that Vanna actually grows. So there is a chance to actually bounce. But what you'd really want to see is puts starting to be bought. Okay. So that's the maximum Vanna is at the 20 to 15 to 20 delta area, both on the call side and the put side. So if your Vanna support is very close to current price and you see that little rug pull, that Vanna could grow a little bit as it gets to 20 delta. But if it gets past that 20 delta, then you can, you need to see some put support being bought then. So Fang, any chance to know Dark Trader's trade plan for this week? All right. You know what? You're right. I should stop sharing this screen. Let me see if I can get Dark Matter's trade plan up. And then, yeah. Because his trade plans are very good. He's, and he trades futures. I trade options. I put on a position and I put on alerts on my thing. And when the alert hits, then I got to look at my position and be like, uh-oh, or, or take profits or whatever. Usually I put a little note in my alert. So I'm looking now because they did make trade plans. So they, it's not like okay. All right. Let's see. All right. Okay. So here I can try. All right. I will bring up, remove that from the studio. All right, let's see if I can share this screen. And all right, here we go. So Dark Matter. All right. So yesterday, he did this yesterday because, like I said, I think he had like a little bit of thing. So he has it stalled beneath 6,300, mixed flows, neutral gamma, negative charm, split Vanna structure that favors upside. Yeah, it's 6330. It's kind of what I was talking about before a little bit. So volatility rising the spot, that is a prior thing. That usually happens when you start crossing those major resistances. Yeah, so I mean that's kind of a repricing, so to speak, right? So he's talking about mean reversion. I think we will get up to 6,400 and maybe mean revert. But I think 6,400 is the biggie. let's go to this thing because this I completely missed like all of the catalysts other than those earnings. Powell's talking tomorrow. I think it's at some like Fed conference. Usually when he talks off, I think Powell is having less of an impact than like Trump is right now. Right now, monetary policy is going to be taking a back seat to fiscal for a while. So while there might be, especially even like in those like FOMC things, those meetings, the implied volatility has been, the event vol has been very small. So just kind of keep that in mind. I do think, though, that some of these economic releases are going to be a little bit, more impactful because they're going to have, like especially when it comes to inflation, people are waiting to see inflation growth and GDP sinking because of these tariffs. We haven't seen that yet. So the ECB has their interest rate decision. It's, primarily an EU thing. I don't think it will have much of an impact on American markets, but in the EU, you'll probably see some disconnect, from countries. And then we got durable goods orders, which usually is a indicator on how businesses feel about the market, the economy overall. So his VIX key levels, we're looking at, this is 1641. I do think that VIX may expand even if we're not crossing over major resistances, only because of the August 1st tariff deadline. And then it'll have knock-on effects, afterward. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing here. VIX is climbing into a known Vanna resistance band. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't pay as much attention to VIX. VIX to me is an indicator. I know you can trade it, and I know that people do trade it. I don't think of VIX as like resistance or support. So you're gonna have to take this for what it's worth. I mean, if it works for dark matter, it works. And I'm sure that there is something to it, but yeah. So let's see. Yeah, that strong negative Vanna inertia, that negative 0.99, by the way, just means that we could see drops and unsupported drops. So all right, the expected move 75 points, relatively low compared to prior weeks, and those 75 points are it's there's not much news this week, so 75 points is kind of like a standard now. But that being said, skew on the wings is a little bit higher. So, I mean, really, the closer the money you are, the cheaper those options are. So, I mean, if you're going to do some kind of like trade for selling premium, you'd want to do it on the wings. You want to do a trade buying premium, you'd want to do it closer to the money. So, dealer positioning summary. Dark matter is looking at gamma being neutral, the largest gamma at like 6,300. I kind of see like it going up. Like because of the bias of Vanna or because of the Vanna bias, kind of see us going up a little bit. Largest gamma will always be at the money, especially when you have like 0 DTE kind of stuff and it's at like an even number. But yeah, I think 63.30 would be a good short-term Vanna move. So, yeah, we discussed that before though. So, all right. This is probably what you guys are all looking for. Intraday, he's looking at stalling at 6,300. I kind of disagree with him a little bit. I do think that intraday, we should start a slow advance. I think 63.30 would be a target, not like a stop, right? That's just me. Yeah, that's that. that's he says here the targets are like 6285 to 6250. I'm not on that boat, but that's kind of, I guess what he's saying is thinks VIX is going to rise and it's going to cause a downdrift. So I guess it looks like his thesis is more about VIX. My thesis is more about Vanna. So this week he's looking at bearish, and that is one thing that can actually happen because of the negative Vanna that we currently have. We discussed that earlier. Vanna dislocation and weak charm support. Yes, it could be mildly bearish. But I kind of still think that it probably will be kind of choppy, for this week. But I do think on net we could go up. Next week, bullish if Powell is dovish. Again, that's another, I think that fiscal policy is bigger than monetary for now. So, I'd kind of keep that. But yeah, and I also think that tariffs for next week, it's going to be big because that's Friday. That's, it's a Friday deadline. But, afterward, 2 weeks and 30 days, he's very bullish. So I think he's saying that he thinks that we will pull back a little bit and then reach 6,400. I think we're going to reach 6,400 and then pull back. I mean, for the way I trade, I think 6,400 is more likely, but this possibility is definitely, it's on the table, especially with this week's Vanna being negative. So this scenario is definitely possible, and I do have hedges on for it. The one thing I will say is I think that the risk you want to assume, if you're an options trader like me, the one thing I do is I like to look at the risk I'm most willing to assume, and my primary thesis, and my what's the most likely and the second most likely thing to happen. And the risk I'd like to assume personally is I do not think we'll get above 6,400. So, I mean, if you're going to do a trade and you want to put on a trade right now for August expiration, you can probably sell something like in the 6,450 calls, right? It's like sell that premium. Again, that's in the wing, so you're getting some decent juice out of that. But something like that, you could also kind of, since eventually, at least, if you're doing a slow crawl up, a 6,400 butterfly or some kind of condor that like a slow crawl up could do. My second most likely is exactly what Dark Matter has put here, which is downturn, mild downturn, to strong downturn, like if tariffs are enacted, right? So if you want to do something like that, my backup that I have on are calendars, right? I have a few 6,100 calendars set up for like July 31st, August, August 15th, I guess it is, whatever expiration is. And you set up those calendars because, implied volatility is going to expand if we go down. So if we go down there to 6,100, that should make up for any kind of price, any kind of cost that you have on the upside. Plus, if you are selling 6,450 or whatever calls for August, you're going to make money both ways. So those are just some ideas from the option side. I know that Dark Matter does futures, so he goes from level to level to level. I left this up on purpose because I'm trying to, I'm speaking about what I think, but that's Dark Matter's opinion. So, so his intraday, he's looking at fading rallies into charm void. So he's looking much more bearish than I am. But both of us, one thing I will say is both of us seem to be thinking that any kind of upside or downside seems to be limited So, all right. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed Dark Matter's trade plan as stated by me. And, we have a little bit of disagreement, but that's what makes markets, right? All right. William Weiss, is it worth looking at Volland? Hold on, let me show. There we go. Is it worth looking at Volland on some of these low option volume stocks? Do you have a cutoff of when option volume is too low to be impactful from a Volland analysis standpoint? So when you have some low option volume kind of stuff, right? The big thing to look for is if there is a standout strike or a standout trade. Not long ago, there was like a big, huge standout trade on like a new IPO. I forget which one it was, but there was a huge call sale. And it was so big that like the market clearly went up to it. Like the hedging clearly went up to that level and then bounced off. So is it worth looking at it? Yes-ish. The way I determine whether it's good or not is looking at the spot vol correlation widget. I will bring that up right now. So I got to reshare my Volland. So here, when you look at the spot vol correlation, when you see this R squared, an individual stock's a little different because they have a lot more fundamental moves than the overall market. But when you see that R squared, let's take a look at, some small thing. If it is like above like that 0.1 area, then you know that there is quite a bit of impact of regular trading. So let's go, I'll just scroll down and pick something random. Moderna, right? So Moderna has 0.01. So this one I would not necessarily count as a strong move. Moderna, that makes sense too, because they have a lot of it's a biotech. So it's a lot of intermittent, catalysts and stuff like that. So when you look at Moderna, it's like, probably not. One thing you can see though with something like Moderna is if you go to the overall Vanna strikes or whatever, you can find possibly like a big strike that can attract attention or something like that. So, but this is like my first go-to is what would be the spot vol correlation, and unless there's if there's not very much correlation, then there's another one. Cisco doesn't have much correlation. Then it's probably just like point to point. If there's just one big strike that's staring at you in the face, right? But J&J here, I guess a little bit. Again, it's a biotech, so it's kind of hard, but it's 0.04, so it's a little bit more. But yeah, so I mean, this is what I look at personally. So next question. Okay. Thank you for the show. Really helpful. Fang. Appreciate it. All right. ATEM. I'm sorry. I do not know Spanish. I do know hello. And saludos to you too. You're from Venezuela, I guess. I might have to, somebody might have to translate that for me. Yuli, AOL, your first stock. Oh man. They still had like a thing around. They had like a headquarters around here not long ago, but they got bought out. Is there a specific channel I post my alerts? I guess you're talking about my 0DTE alerts. They are on my Discord for subs only. But yeah, you can also visit LeDuc Trading. I have a guest channel for her, so can't thank you enough. Metal yellow first red. I don't know what yellow metal first red is, but no problem, Fang. And the first stock was Iomega from Dr. Funkenstein. Yeah, it's it's weird. Everybody remembers their first stock, right? So anyway, thanks for showing up, and I hope my soliloquy helped you out, and may Volland help you in your future trading ventures.